Molim da mi se na pozornici pridruži gospodin Michael Brandstetter. Molimo veliki pljesak.
Dobro jutro, dame I gospode. First of all, I would like to congratulate you that you managed to come here and congratulate also the organizers for organizing such a great event here, including the evening program. I would also thank the organizers, Secretary General Paukovic, Nives Grguric, for the invitation. And so you also know whom you have to blame if the topic I will present to you maybe is a little bit too much outreaching, because Voye was asking me to present something, an overview of what's happening at the moment on EU level. And to be honest, actually, this is a mission impossible. However, I was calling it what is in the pipeline. And referring to the pipeline is, I would suggest that most of you work in the insurance business, and you will have things which are decided at the moment on EU level, have on your table, working table, maybe in some month or some years, and to give you an overview on this. So my goal is today that when you walk out from the door today and you look to the Kwana Bay and the beauty of the Kwana Bay is touching your eye, that you have a general overview what has been recently adapted on EU level and have already an idea what is the outlook of topics which will be discussed in the future. And well understood, I take you as target audience as people who have a general knowledge about the topics, but are not closely following on a daily basis these topics and not are so much in the details. So that's my basic focus. I was preparing the presentation. Having said this, you see now the topics I have prepared for you. I will discuss topics like ESG, RIS, Solvency II, IRD, digital, well understood, right to be forgotten, capital markets union, and some other topics. And I would suggest to start with a picture which William Vidonia last year, if you remember, has presented to you in this room here. And it shows a little bit what insurance companies are confronted these days. And if you look here at this page, it's before the COVID crisis in 2019, there were about 19 topics, legislative topics discussed on EU level. And nowadays we speak about more than 60 topics. And again, these topics are currently discussed on the legislative level, but it will be on your table sooner or later. Having said this, I also want to draw your attention that due to the Lamfalussy process, there are a huge mass of level 2, level 3 provisions, which you also have to take into account in your work, which means the conclusion would be it's really a mass of legislative challenges which are waiting for you. So jump now into the first topic, which is well understood, a priority of the European Commission over the last years. And a lot of topics had been developed here in this field of sustainable finance and ESG in the past. I have mentioned some topics which are relevant for insurance companies. I don't want to go into all the topics because it's a mission impossible, as already mentioned, to go through all of them. But you see the mass of legislation which has to be implemented in this field, and some of them are already implemented, already adopted on EU level, still have to be implemented on national level. I want to point out maybe a topic I don't want to talk about today. It's the amendment of the IDD, for example, which is very, very important in the distribution processes. Having said this, I would like to give you a general outlook of the latest developments. So to raise some topics which have been recently discussed. The first is the CSDDD, the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive. And in this field, from the legislative process, I have witnessed something which I have never seen before. I don't know, Karel, if you have seen something like this. Just to tell you, there had been reached a political trilogue agreement in December, and everyone was thinking, okay, that's it. And finally, the council said, no, we don't agree. We don't adopt what has been decided by the Parliament and the Council due to some, let's put it like this, some political resistance in some member states. And so let's say the agreement has been adopted. Well understood, I think everyone is aware, it's about let's say, taking care of the global value chain, what insurance also have to take care about. It's not only for insurance, it's for all companies of the economy. And what has been changed basically is that the thresholds concerning the size of the companies which have to, let's say, have to follow a staged implementation process has to be lifted. There are now higher thresholds, so that at the beginning, at the first stage, only the very big companies have to implement this. And this mirrors a little bit the point, one point that Mladen already said in his presentation, is the question of proportionality. Well understood, for smaller companies, this is a huge burden and bigger than maybe for bigger companies, but also for bigger companies, that's a challenge. Having said this, what's new about this? First of all, there have to be transition plans developed by insurance companies. And what is really new about it is that there's an obligation which is translated into sanctions. So if you don't follow, someone will come, maybe President Schickman, I don't know, someone else will say, please, you have to follow this rule, if not, you get a sanction. So this is something really new, because so far, all the rules are more, let's say, on a not obligatory basis. Again, implementation as of 2027, and insurers are involved particularly on the upstream activities and not on the downstream activities. Downstream activities, meaning is the relation with clients. However, we think that's great, that's very justified. However, there is a review of the European Commission after 2 years in this field. A brand hot topic is the implementation of the CSRD, which is due in July, on the 6th of July. And as far as understood, also in Croatia, I think you're like working now in implementation law in this field. We in Austria as well. We don't know it yet, but hopefully know it soon. So that's this will be the challenge for the next weeks. And here again, just to remind you, let's say the bigger companies already have to apply these rules with a report at the beginning of next year for the reporting year 2024, so this year already. So that's really the first big step in this reporting field. I would like to draw your particular attention on the ASAP. The ASAP is the European Single Access Point, which is basically a public EU register of ESG information. Well understood here, insurance companies have actively contributed with data, but also can take data out from the ESG because they need it for the purpose of the CSRD implementation. Important to know is why we did this, or why the legislator did this on EU level. It's to provide cost-free information. If this would not exist, then insurance companies would have to go to consultancies and buy this data. So I think that's the main idea, to have free of cost and high quality standardized data which companies can use. There's a gradual implementation starting in the year 2027. And the last point I would like to raise your awareness to is the question of greenwashing. And we can see that this is really in the high focus of companies, because of course, companies they want and they are offering products, green products, but the problem we have at the moment, there's no clear definition what is greenwashing. So when you call something green and it's not green, there's no real definition. And so there's a huge compliance risk that you offer a product and after some month, after some years, someone is coming, oh, what you offered here, it's greenwashing, and you will have sanctions on this. So it's a really very sensitive topic, and I want to raise your awareness that here in the next weeks, EIOPA is planning to publish a report, and hopefully, and maybe also clarifying here the definition of greenwashing. A second point I want to mention here, just for your background information, there are also rumors of a SFDR review, and here a question maybe to say, okay, the Article 8 or Article 9 products, maybe this definition or this could be put in a system of a labeling system. But it's open discussion, but just to draw your sensitivity on this point. Having said this, I would like to mention that we from the insurance industry side, we would see that at this phase it would be important to start a phase of a streamlining and repairing process to repair this complex regulatory framework. Also to apply, as already mentioned, the principle of proportionality to reduce administrative burden. I think this could be the motto of the upcoming years. Well understood, and I think this is maybe very important for Croatia as well, that the reporting really should stay on the consolidated group level, so that not small insurance companies have to do all this reporting. This brings me to the second topic, which is a very important topic. It's the retail investment strategy in the field of distribution. I guess everyone is aware of what is it about. My colleague Susanne was having a presentation last year here about the details in this field. Just to remember, it's basically a horizontal frame for insurance-based investment products, so meaning life insurance, for retail investors coming from the insurance, from the banking, and the investment side. Where do we stay here now in the legislative process? The European Parliament was in the last second defining its position on this topic and adopted its final report still in April. And what is the content of this? First of all, there is a deletion of the partial ban on commission for non-advised sales. And then there is a clarification of the prohibition of commission for independent advice. There is a very important topic, it's about the benchmarks, and benchmarks would, according to the European Parliament, only be used for supervisory purpose. There's a promotion of financial literacy. The implementation deadline, it's a very, very important point always for us, for the industry, and maybe you know it also from your experience, has been extended to 18 months as soon as the level 2 texts are available to the insurers. And another very important topic for the insurance industry is the topic of value for money. And I could talk quite a long time about this, but in this field there can be some additional burden expected, also from the provision which are discussed at the European Parliament. On the Council side, the Council is still negotiating, but there's also high priority, and the Belgian presidency tries to reach an agreement by the end of its term until June, and if this is functioning well, the trilogue negotiations could start already in autumn. I don't want to go in details here. There are many, many important topics, as mentioned, benchmarks, the value for money concept, but also a very important point is the question of the importance of the commission system. And here, particularly looking in the CEE region in Central Europe about our systems, it would be very, very important to have a broad choice of insurance products on the markets which are accessible for all consumers, and to have a diversity also of distribution channels, and this can be only provided by a commission system. Having said this, it means also for markets where there's not a high level of financial literacy, it's also a question of affordability of advice. But I don't want to go into details, but just flagging that there's a particular importance. Solvency II and the Insurance Recovery and Resolution Directive, IRD, what can I tell you about this if we have the experts in this field in the room? So I would suggest maybe to address Karel van Hulle in the coffee break and ask him about further details. I can only report where do we stand in the legislative process. Basically now the European Parliament still adopted the text of both legislative topics, but not in all language versions. And this means that the publication in the official journal will only be possible in autumn, which means that the application for insurance companies will be due most probably in autumn 2026 with many open questions. And I want to draw your attention also to the fact there's a huge number of level 2 and level 3 provisions currently discussed, or which have to be discussed, which in the nitty-gritty details are also very important. About the topics in Solvency II, I don't want to mention the details again. I think Karel van Hülle might answer all your detailed questions in the coffee break. But there are topics like proportionality, long-term guarantees, reporting standards, etc., etc. About the Insurance Recovery and Resolution Directive, IRD, well understood. This is a preventive tool and powers, basically, which are complementing the existing Solvency II directive. And in general, it's no secret that we insurers, we are very skeptical about this concept because we would say with Solvency II, we have already everything on board. However, in addition, there is now this new directive. And basically, it means that large companies have to prepare preventive recovery and resolution plans also here on group level. Small and non-complex companies are excluded, but in case if the National Supervisory Authority deems that it's necessary, they can be also included. There will be the establishment of national resolution authorities, which have then enhanced or powers for resolution tools as soon as a company gets into danger. And one topic which is also very important, also politically very important, particularly looking also about the possible discussions in the Capital Markets Union, it's the insurance guarantee schemes. And there the European Commission, with the help of EIOPA, will review or write a report 2 years basically after the implementation of the directive. But so I think we should really have a look very carefully what is discussed in this field. Again, here, key positions from our side. It's important to have a clear and appropriate implementation process for insurers. And looking at the level 2, level 3 process, it's important not to have contradicting level 2, 3 provisions to level 1 messages, particularly if we look in the field of capital release, in the field of Solvency II, and of course, as already mentioned, a reduction of administrative burden, where I guess there would be potentially a lot of room to do in this field. The next topic, digital. Mladen has already taken a very, very important point, I think, which is very relevant with DORA for insurance companies. I would like to draw a little bit the attention to the field of access to and the use of data, and present you 2 topics which have been already adopted. The first, and which were also quite a lot in the media, at least in Austria. So the Artificial Intelligence Act, which has been already adopted by the co-legislators. And here I would like to point out, and I would like read out that AI systems intended to be used to risk assessment and pricing in relation to, and I think you have to go away from reading because it's quite far away. Anyway, insurers are let's say, involved and seen insurance products in the field of health insurance and in field of life insurance as high-risk products. And if you have as high-risk artificial intelligence, and as soon as this is classified like this, you have higher standards to meet. However, there is a possibility for insurers on an individual basis to have exemption of this high-risk classification with a self-assessment together with the National Supervisory Authority, and then being exempted from this classification. What is the impact on the insurers? Well understood, of artificial intelligence. It's the efficiency enhancement, it's the customer services, claims management, and of course also in-house use. So this topic maybe is still quite far away for many of us, but the impact on the industry potentially can be huge. Another topic, I don't want to go now into details. May I invite you to read out the background of this. It's the European Health Data Space, where here also insurers are not directly involved, but what is the general message? First of all, and I could summarize it like this, that insurers will not be able to use the data, or only to a very limited extent, to use the data from these data hubs, but will be obliged to provide data to the hubs. Particularly from the political background, because there's a tension that insurers use data in a very granular way. And to use this granular data, this is seen as quite risky from the policymaker side. And so there's a risk of restrictions also in the upcoming process of the implementation of users' access to data and to use of data. So basically, again, what I want to know is like, let's say, secondary or reused anonymized data can be not used by insurance companies. Still to come is a topic which is also quite in the media. It's the framework to financial data access, short FIDA. Here it's basically the access and reuse of customer data with consent of the customer, well understood, of financial services. And important point here is that this data should be shared with third parties. And the idea is, okay, you have, for example, a startup company which brings innovation to the market, and that these startup companies have access to this data. However, in the political discussions, there's also a question, who are these third parties? And question, are also the big tech companies third parties who can use this? So it's just to point out, potentially a question of competition also in this field. However, what are the problems? It's the question, also I could talk a lot about this. Is it really a need for the customer? What is the role of gatekeepers, the big techs in this process? And again, here the European Parliament has adopted its position, still in the last second, and the Council is still about to negotiate this topic. Last topic, access to in-vehicle data. Maybe some of you are aware of this, that already for many, many years, the insurance industry is asking the European Commission to provide here a legislative proposal, which was not happening in the last legislative period. However, now the European Commission is working on a delegated act amending the type approval regulation. So there is still hope that something is happening in this field. Again, here is the relation who is owning the data, let's say the automotive industry, the car industry, or if the car industry is obliged to share this data. Very, very political discussion. This is why this outcome of the discussions was not so successful so far. The position, very short, I think I don't have to mention, insurance industry needs fuel, and fuel is data, so the access to data is important. Insurers can use it in a proactive way, also for innovation, this data, to improve the services of the customers, but also its internal processes. However, there should be a level playing field with other business sector, and here what I want to say basically is particularly in relation to the big techs. Our next topic on the agenda is the topic right to be forgotten and risk-based underwriting. I'm not sure if everyone is aware of this topic, but it was popping up in the last month and years quite a lot, not only on EU level, but also member states level. What is it about? It's about that health data, in such cases as cancer survivors, may not be considered in policy applications after a defined or determined deadline. This basically means that a right to be forgotten requires insurance to be offered without considering all relevant risk indicators. And if you think it to the next step, this means this is really a threat to the business model of private insurance. Politically, the topic is discussed at the moment, particularly in the field of access to mortgage credits, in the field for cancer survivors. But there are already examples, and there's a risk that this discussion would spill over to other lines of businesses, illnesses, etc., etc. And if you think it to the end, this could be really a danger for the insurance business. This map here shows you in red countries which already have legal provisions for right to be forgotten. In yellow, countries where the insurance industry was making a code of conduct. And in green, countries which are preparing at the moment legislative proposal. And there is also a neighboring country of Croatia, for example, doing so at this moment. On EU level, very briefly, what was the discussion? There is the Consumer Credit Directive, CCD, which has to be implemented until 2026. And here, a right to be forgotten for maximum cutoff period of 15 years is introduced. Second topic is because the Commission has announced that in its beating cancer plans that it would like to provide for a code of conduct on EU level until this year. And from this process in October last year, something like a round table started between different stakeholders, including Insurance Europe, the insurance industry, and different NGOs from the consumer protection side, etc., and discussing of elaboration of a code of conduct which is signed by all stakeholders. This process is, let's say, in a final stage. And there is still hope that there might be something like a final result until summer. Anyway, I would like to point out that the insurance industry sees this as very important and is very involved. Also, on different legislative topics like FIDA, for example, there had been amendments introduced in the European Parliament, which would foresee a very broad right to be forgotten. So you can see that there is really some dynamic in this discussion. From the insurer's perspective, I allow myself to point out that looking on the use of data, risk-based underwriting, there are well understood legislative provisions for the insurance sector, Insolvency II, for example. There is something basic for insurance, that differentiation is not discrimination. Their risk calculation has to be made on evidence-based data. There can be possible negative effects on the community of insured. For example, the price level, which would be then maybe had to be calculated higher. And this then could lead again to anti-selection, information asymmetries, and well understood, a one-size-fits-all approach we would see very, very difficult because you have different situations in the member states concerning the health systems and the quality of social systems, etc. I would like now to come to already slowly to an end of the presentation and already looking forward what will expect us in the future with the Capital Markets Union. The Capital Markets Union is a discussion which started now, which has been already discussed already for many years, and it will more or less determine the work program of the new EU Commission. There have been already reports, statements made by ex-prime ministers, by the Eurogroup finance minister, by the French expert group of the Ministry of Finance. And in these discussions, I would like to point out some topics relevant for insurers, which had been discussed. It's, for example, the topic securitization, harmonization of insolvency law, reduction of administrative burden, European savings product, a new PEP 2.0 maybe, and a very important topic from our perspective, it's a possible European supervisory structure or something like a single European supervisor. And there, particularly speaking here in Central Europe, I would like to point out that from our perspective, it would be important to have for small and diversified markets that there's a need for the supervisors which is fully embedded in European structures, well understood, and thus is also close to the local market specificities. Having said this, from our side, it would be important that a European system of insurance supervisors should give the national competent authorities a very strong role, and also the colleges of supervisors, because they know the local specificities, for example, the different civil laws, pension systems, etc. They have local expertise, and they have also local accountability. So I think for particularly smaller member states, it will be very important in the next years or month to raise this topic very carefully. What else is going on? I don't want to go into details, but you have maybe read it in the media on the anti-money laundering package, which had been adopted also during the last month. There has been a new authority established in Frankfurt. There is planned to have a review of the general data protection regulation. There will be a report from the European Commission now in the next weeks, and to see if there will be a review, very relevant for insurers. And of course, in the field of natural catastrophes, we see that EIOPA is doing quite a lot of work in this field, which we see very, very positive, that there is coming some dynamic. So EIOPA has established something like a NatCat dashboard and is also engaging with the ECB, particularly discussing topics like possible emission of catastrophe bonds, examining the 12 existing NatCat regimes now, and maybe also the possibility of establishing a backstop, a public backstop as the ESM. Whatever is in this field, I just want to point out, I think it's in every presentation or in every discussion at every conference, that the insurance industry can play a very, very important role to reduce the existing protection gap in this field. And it's very important, I think, also in Croatia, particularly looking to the events over the last years. This brings me now to the conclusion. And I just want to point out that what we see is an increasing, let's say, an increase of quality and complexity of legislation, and we very much would support this strategy of the European Commission to reduce reporting requirements for companies by 25%. Would say there should be some action in this sense. As mentioned there, we should enter a phase in repairing and streamlining complex legislative frameworks, like for example in the field of sustainable finance, ESG. However, also insurers can play a very, very important role in the field of contributing to the goals of the EU Green Deal, which is in Solvency II and sustainable finance. There are some challenges, potential challenges for the business model and the access to data. We see it with the right to be forgotten or the digital agenda. There are some potential competition challenges. We can see this in the distribution field, but also again in the digital agenda. There's a question of affordability and accessibility to insurance services, a topic discussed in the field of distribution or also in a broader sense with the right to be forgotten. And well understood, the CMU, the Capital Markets Union, will determine the work program of the new commission. And it's very, very important that insurance-specific topics are addressed already at the very beginning, and also issues which are important, like say, for smaller member states. And last but not least, again, the insurance industry can play a very important role in the field of NAT, or let's say to address increasing NatCat risks. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, Vala. And if you have questions, I will be also available in the coffee break later. Thank you.